You good, Will? Because I don't want to start unless you're good.
I'm all set. Okay. Thank you. That's why you're a team player.
All right, guys, sorry I'm running a little bit late. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the last 24 hours. So, my name is Captain Frank Umbrino, U-M-B-R-I-N-O. Obviously, the reason we're here this morning is to update the community on the incidents that occurred last night on Pennsylvania Avenue. I'll start by giving you a quick summary of what happened. Please understand that there's limited information and limited facts that I can give you at this time. Obviously, it's still very, very early in the investigation, and we have a lot of work to do in front of us. But again, we do feel it is important to provide the public with the information that we can at this time. So, last night about 12:30 in the morning, our local 911 center received multiple calls for shots fired and people shot in the 200 block of Pennsylvania Avenue. Officers responded. They were confronted with probably 100 to 200 individuals that were attempting to flee the area, both on foot and in vehicles. The officers that initially responded were faced with a very dangerous and volatile situation. There was numerous people who were shot. There was their responsibility to try to get these people out of the immediate area so they can have first aid rendered to them. They also had to attempt to try to secure the crime scene, which was several blocks large, and they also had to try to secure any witnesses that they could. That being said, the officers did an outstanding job. Unfortunately, we have to train for these types of incidents. It did require some assistance from our local partners, the New York State Police, Monroe County Sheriff's Office, and the Irondequoit Police Department all responded and assisted. Ultimately, we learned that there was a total of 16 people that suffered gunshot wounds as a result of the shooting that had taken place. 5 individuals were treated at Rochester General Hospital. 9 individuals were treated at University of Rochester Medical Center. And unfortunately, 2 victims were pronounced dead at the scene. Those victims have been identified as Jaquayla Young. She's a 2019 graduate of East High School. And Jarvis Alexander, he's a 2019 graduate of UPrep. As far as the investigation thus far, what I can tell you is that there was an invite-only house party that was occurring at the residence on Pennsylvania Avenue where the shooting occurred. This was not supposed to be a large gathering. There was a limited number of people that were invited. There were 2 other separate parties that were occurring in the neighborhood nearby. At some point during the evening, people from those other 2 parties started to infiltrate, if you will, the party at the location where this occurred. As the evening progressed, at some point there was some type of altercation or argument that ensued by a couple of the people in attendance. The argument quickly escalated, and at that point several individuals took out handguns and started firing. I cannot tell you exactly how many individuals were firing at this point in time, but we believe there's at least 3 to 4 people that were in possession of handguns and were firing at the party. I don't have an exact number for you yet, but I can tell you that there was an excess of 40 rounds fired by at least 3 or 4 suspects. And by some witness accounts, we believe that the gunfight lasted for probably over a minute. Moving forward, we have still dozens of people that we have to interview. There's a lot of video that we have to review, and there's a lot of forensic evidence that we still have to analyze. What's extremely important in this case, as well as in all cases, is that we need the community to come forward and help us with this investigation. Like I said, there was probably 100 to 200 people that were witnesses or at least have knowledge of the incident. We've spoken to many of those people. The cooperation thus far has been commendable, but in order to bring this case to a successful resolution where we can hold the people accountable, responsible, we do need the community to come forward. If anybody has any pictures or videos, they can email them to us at majorcrimes@cityofrochester.gov. And if you have information, please call 911 or please call 311. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but of the 14 non-fatal gunshot victims, they all ranged in the age of 17 to 23 years of age. In addition to the 16 people that were shot, there was also 2 people that suffered injuries as a result of being trampled. Again, there's a large number of people, and they're all trying to get out of a backyard at once while shots are ringing out. So their injuries are non-life-threatening, but they were serious injuries. And I can report at this time that as of right now, all of the 14 non-fatal gunshot wounds, the injuries do not appear to be life-threatening. I cannot tell you at this point how many people are still hospitalized and how many have been released. That's something that we're obviously still working through today. There's a lot to do. So I understand that that's limited information, but that's what I can provide you guys at this point in time.
How old are the 2 victims, Frank?
The 2 victims, they graduated in 19. I want to say that they're both 19 years old.
Captain, do you have a sense that the 3 or 4 people you referenced were shooting at each other or shooting at the rest of the group? I guess what I'm asking is, are those 3 or 4 people, are they together?
No, we believe they're probably shooting at each other. I can't sit here and tell you at this point in time. What I feel comfortable telling you is that Jaquayla and Jarvis were likely not the intended targets. We have 2 innocent victims here that were attending, a party with a few friends, and unfortunately they lost their lives as a result because 3 or 4 individuals decided to carry handguns and pull them out and shoot at a crowd of 100 to 200 people.
Now, the protests that are also happening at the same time during this incident, do you think that might have impacted police response?
No. I mean, the protests, I believe the protests ended around midnight. The police response, was outstanding. I was actually still here working the protest myself when I heard the radio call come in. And, I can tell you that I was impressed the way that, the officers handled it, both from the Rochester Police Department as well as the assisting agencies. What I can tell you is that officers are very tired. Officers have been working 18, 20 hours a day for the last 14 or 15 days. But, did that affect our response last night? No. These guys are great at what they do and they're professionals. And, they got the job done. And now it's our job to take care of the investigative part of it.
One more question. It was a very confusing scene. You had multiple blocks shut down. So you said that there was 2 houses that was involved in this house party. Can you clarify that up?
There was, where the incident occurred, there was a party going on. There was 2 other parties in the neighborhood. And people from those 2 other parties, as those other parties started to break up, unfortunately ended up at the location where it occurred.
Now,
did they know each other, the people at the parties?
There was some people that knew each other, but again, a large part of the gathering was not people that were initially invited to the party. So there was some people that knew each other. They weren't initially invited. As far as who was involved in the altercation, I can't provide that information.
Did you describe it as they crashed the party, or they just happened to know people as they were walking to their own cars and leaving out of the party?
Both. I think some people probably crashed it. I think it was just something, they're leaving the other party and there's people here. Let's go here. Word spreads, and before you know it, you got 100 to 200 people at the same location.
Why were the people arguing, Frank?
Don't know. Don't know for sure yet. Again, we're still conducting a lot of interviews. I do not know what precipitated the initial altercation.
But it wasn't like gang-related or anything. It was just an argument and people...
I can't speculate at this point in time. We don't know for sure yet.
Captain, were most of the victims in the backyard of the home? Where did the shooting actually occur?
There was shooting that occurred both in the front and in the back. There was a large number of people in the back of the house, where the true party was actually taking place. But, I believe the altercation most likely started in the front, and, there were shots fired in the front, there were shots fired in the back, and there were shots fired up the street. I mean, you had over 40 rounds, and the, casings were located, probably in a 2-3 block span.
no.
Can you give us an idea of the investigative process, like the next steps? Is the community
community cooperating with you guys? Is anyone helping?
Yeah, as of, thus far, we've been pleased with the cooperation that we've been getting. And because there's so many people involved, number one, you have, so many victims, and number two, there are so many potential witnesses at the scene. The amount of investigative work, it's tremendous. I mean, you have a ton of people that need to be interviewed. You got video that needs to be gone through. It's going to be a very tedious and long process, but we have some of the best around, and we'll get through it. But we're just going to ask for everybody's patience. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is we need people to come forward and give us what we need to hold those responsible.
Is there any truth to the rumor that police were called to this area around 10:30?
From what we've found so far, we're not aware of any calls to 911 earlier in the evening. I haven't personally been able to look through everything that we've had, but what I've been told up to this point is there was no calls prior to the shooting.
There was a vigil happening slash party. Do you think that was involving another murder that happened at Cobb's Hill? Do you have want to comment on that? And also another question on top of that, was this gang related?
As far as whether it was gang related, it's still too early to speculate, and I'm not going to do that. And there was a vigil being held for the young man who got killed up at Cobb's Hill, and we do believe that some people from that vigil were some of the people that ended up coming to the original party location.
Now, what's basically your reaction to this violence that's been happening in the community recently?
I'm disgusted. 90% of the residents in this community are good, hard-working people. And, I feel terrible for them that the decisions of a few bad people are having the impact that it is right now. What are the answers moving forward? I have my ideas. I've been on the job for almost 30 years now. What I can tell you is that I'm not surprised by the violence that's been taking place. And I'm going to get in trouble probably for this, but if I hear one more politician talk about, what we need to do to stop the violence, we need more gun laws, we need this, we need that, quite frankly, I'm going to vomit. These people that say that have no idea what they're talking about. We have a lot of gun laws currently on the books that we do not enforce. I shouldn't say we don't enforce. We enforce them, but you have individuals getting locked up for illegal handguns and being released from custody the next day. That's disgusting. How does that happen? So if anybody is surprised that there's been an uptick in violence since we don't enforce the current gun laws that we have, I don't know what to tell you. But those are the facts. These politicians that want to say we need more gun laws, we need this, we need that, do me a favor, just stop talking, because you really don't know what you're talking about. Come and ask anybody that lives in these neighborhoods. I've had conversations over the last 3 weeks with dozens of people that live in these neighborhoods, that live on Bernard Street, that live on Pennsylvania Avenue. They don't believe any of the stuff you're saying. There needs to be accountability. I'll equate it to this. If you're speeding and you get pulled over by the police and it's a $5 fine, do you really care if you get pulled over speeding? Probably not, right? You need to get to where you need to get to. So if you're an individual who has an illegal handgun, or you're thinking about carrying an illegal handgun, and you know that you get stopped and arrested with that handgun, and you're going to get out of jail the next day, do you care if you get caught?
So the bail reform that the governor put in, that plays a major part in upticking crime.
Bail reform, in my opinion, as a 30-year veteran in law enforcement and working in the city of Rochester for the last 30 years, bail reform has a significant impact on the amount of crime and the uptick in crime that's been occurring in our community and throughout New York State. Look at the numbers. I sent the numbers out not long ago. I don't hear a lot about it in the media, but the numbers are terrible. And anybody that says that bail reform is not part of the blame in that, again, you're fooling yourself. And please stop telling us that.
Kathy, I couldn't help but think of the Boys and Girls Club shooting today. Mm-hmm. Circumstances where you have a large group of people and you have suspects just firing into that crowd. Can you kind of amplify the point how you may have an intended target, but how dangerous that is?
Yes. Cases are very similar but very different. The Boys and Girls Club back in 2015 you had a car driving by, and individuals in that car shot out the windows they were driving by, and they indiscriminately shot at the crowd. We had 3 young people that lost their lives, and we had, I think, 7 others that were injured that night. This instance a little bit different in that it wasn't somebody driving by and indiscriminately firing. Doesn't make it any better, but you did have some type of altercation, and you did have individuals that were probably shooting at each other, but had a complete, total disregard for the other people that were in the immediate area.
Now, for the families, this is horrible that this happened. These people just graduated. What do you have to say to the families, and do you think the system failed them?
The only thing I can say to the families is I'm sorry. We will do everything that we can to get them the answers that they need and the answers that they deserve. And I'll go back to what I said before. It's not rocket science and how to try to have an impact and keep a community safe. And until we as citizens, want to be honest about, what we need to do, this unfortunately is going to continue. There's good people that make bad decisions, and there's bad people that make bad decisions. We need to be the adults in the room, and, we need to raise our children and teach them how to do things right, and we need to, instill in them good moral fabric. And part of that is, we're all kids, and when you were a kid and you did something wrong, you got punished, right? Whether you got sent to your room or you had to go stand, whatever it was, you got punished. So you knew that there was consequences for your actions. So if kids these days don't have any consequences, we're doing them a disservice because we're not teaching them. We're not bringing them up the way they need to be brought up, in the way that most of us here got brought up.
So do you think the people who came to the party, you said the people who were shot were between 17 and 23, but were there older adults who came into it, or was this all a group of that kind of, early 20s?
Again, I don't know, obviously, everybody that was at the party, but what I can tell you is that, what we believe at this point, everybody was in the same age range.
What do you think about enforcing more strict gun laws? I mean, what would that look like at this point?
It's really not difficult. We have some of the toughest gun laws in the country. Why are we going to create more laws when we don't enforce the laws that we currently have on the books? I think we've set out numbers before. How many individuals that were victims or suspects in violent crimes, including homicides, were out on probation, were out on parole for other gun charges? Numbers don't lie, folks, and until we're honest with ourselves and we're honest with each other, this is going to continue. And I'm not sitting here saying that we need to lock everybody up. That is absolutely not the answer. 100% that is not the answer. But when you have the same people committing the same crimes over and over and over again, new laws aren't going to help them. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time, and I've been involved in hundreds of homicide investigations here in the city of Rochester. Do you know how many of those homicide investigations involved individuals that owned legally registered handguns? Honestly, I can't remember one that wasn't justified or ruled as justified by a grand jury in which a suspect committed a murder with a legally owned handgun. So again, if these politicians want to get up and spew that we need more gun laws, they're just lying. They don't want to answer the real questions that need to be answered.
So where are these guns coming from?
That's a great question. A lot of the guns come from out of state. And we certainly need to focus efforts on attempting to stop these guns from coming here. But again, it's like drugs. You can stop and you can make an impact, but you're never going to stop them completely.
This is scary for a lot of younger people who are actually getting shot and killed in the streets. And I mean, these 2 victims who were killed just graduated. What do you have to say to the younger community? And also, most of the gunmen who are in custody are younger as well.
Are gunmen in custody?
No, not in this instance.
Previous gunmen.
Yeah. What I will say is to the young people is stop, think. Your actions have ramifications. It's not all fun and games, and you need to stop and think. And it's incumbent upon us as adults to encourage our children to do the right thing and make the right decisions. That requires us being good examples for them. And, you know, some of the things that we see, it's just not, you know, parents not being good examples for their children. And the children learn their behavior from their parents. You know, but these two victims today, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. High school graduates, their entire life is in front of them, and because a few people made terrible decisions, it's terrible, and I feel horrible for the families.
Can you talk a little bit about listen to the radio transmissions, that there seems to be, oh, here's a shooting victim, here's a shooting victim. We need as many cars as we can get. It just seems chaotic.
Yep.
I mean, what is it like for officers responding to something like that?
It's crazy. I mean, it's, you know, it's crazy, and these guys did an outstanding job. You actually had police officers that were carrying some of the victims out of the gunfire. You got people running away from gunfire, and you got officers running towards it, because that's the job that we do. And you know, these guys and gals last night, they did a great job. Like I said, they're carrying victims out of the scene so they could be treated, and it's kudos to them, and thank you to them for being out there and answering the call and running forward when everybody else is running backwards.
Have you guys recovered any gun, Frank? Have you recovered any gun? Because I've heard radio chatter that there was a gun recovered. And
yes.
Also, if you're going to respond to that, can you tell us what types of guns you think were used in this encounter?
I will not talk about what types of guns were used in the incident last night. I can confirm we did recover one handgun last night. We have to do ballistic tests to see if it was one of the guns that was used, but at this point we do not believe that it was one of the guns that was used to shoot anybody.
Was gunfire ongoing when police arrived?
No, gunfire was not ongoing when police arrived. It was just ending.
Frank, you talk about decisions making. What do you think policies or whatever that would help young people not feel compelled to carry guns, to use guns?
Kids are very impressionable, okay? And kids can be molded, and that's our job as parents and adults to do that. If kids feel that they can walk around and there's no consequences for their actions, they're going to partake in certain activity, okay? Again, some of us are older than others in the room, but there's certain things growing up that we wanted to do that were fun, right? But we didn't do them because we knew that there was consequences, and we didn't want to suffer those consequences. It's the same thing today, but unfortunately there isn't the consequences that me and the rest of you in the room had to face when we were growing up. So, you know, some people think that it's fun to carry a gun.
Do you think that with the shootings that are happening, do you think there's something that should be done at home?
Listen, there is no one answer to solve this problem. But yes, as parents and as adults, you know, we need to take care of our children. As community leaders, you know, we need to be good examples for our children. You know, some of the best conversations I had last night with a couple of the reverends and pastors that were on the scene. And, you know, they got it right. They know what the deal is in the neighborhood, and, you know, they're attempting to be role models for these kids. We need more role models from the community to stand up. We don't need to hear from people that don't live on Bernard Street or don't live on Pennsylvania Avenue or don't live on Wilkins Street. We don't need to hear from you what those neighborhoods need, okay? Because you have no idea, because you won't even walk down those neighborhoods. The people we need to listen to are the people that live on these streets. Because I'll tell you what, I've been talking to a lot of them the last 3 weeks, and they're sick and tired of what's going on, and, you know, they're the ones that are suffering because other people, you know, are pretending to know how to solve problems, and they don't.
Are you referring to the protesters, Frank?
Nope, I'm just referring about life in general. I'm not going to get into everything, but, you know, people in the neighborhoods are getting frustrated, and I'm getting super frustrated because I've been hearing from them for the last 3 weeks, and I feel their pain. And, you know, unfortunately, they work every day, 12 hours a day. They got families to feed, so they don't have time to, you know, be as vocal as they would like to, but they're talking loud and clear to us.
What are they saying to you folks? What are they saying that they want?
I can't quote what they're saying, but they're telling these people to get the hell out of their city and let us take care of our problems the way we need to take care of them.
What people?
That's what they said. And at that point, I think we're going to end it because I'm going to say something I'm going to get in trouble for if I haven't already. Is there any other questions specifically on last night's incident?
Yes.
We actually are going to hand out to you guys the proper spelling of the victims' names.
Frank, are there going to be, you think, regular updates daily, or what?
You know, honestly, guys, at this point, I don't suspect anything else today or tomorrow unless we have a major break in the investigation. This is going to be slow. There's just so much to do. There's so much to do. The investigators have been up for, you know, almost 48, over 48 hours at this point. So I probably not today or tomorrow, but I'm sure on Monday, you know, we'll at least provide some type of update for you guys.
Now, I mean, there were dozens of witnesses out there. Any leads on any suspects?
I'm not going to tell you that, Jeffrey, but we're working.
People, any of the two victims, residents of that home?
No, neither one of those victims reside in that home.
Do you know whether they were a couple or they were just randomly?
I do not believe they're a couple. I'm not going to speculate beyond that on their connection. But, like, again, we don't believe that they're the intended targets. By all accounts, these are two great members of our community that were beloved by the people that they went to school with and their teachers. And it's a tragedy. You know, unfortunately, it's another innocent person in the city of Rochester that's gunned down for absolutely no good reason whatsoever. And it's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching when you have innocent people getting killed. I just hope a month from now, everybody remembers their names. Okay? Thank you, folks.
I was going to ask one more. You talked about officers carrying people. Can you describe more what was going on, people running? I mean, you see bandages everywhere. How did they know how to catch people where they were and find the people that were hiding?
It was crazy, and you got a bunch of people running, and it's chaos. And basically, the officer has to act upon their instincts. And you know, they did what needed to get done. You know, maybe at some point we could have some of the officers there talk about it, but you know, I don't want to speak for them other than to say thank you to them because they made us all proud in the way they handled it and the way they, you know, put other safety in front of their own. All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Frank.